In between some hills, a freeway, and a river lies a small community. A lively, strong community. A community diverse, historic, and artistic. Frogtown. Your neighborhood, your art, your artists. You disrupt the hustle of Los Angeles and create something unique, refreshing, and beautiful.
Hi, my name is John Vincent Falchi, and I'm an artist living here in Frogtown. My wife and I moved here 9 years ago and fell in love. The river, the parks, and especially the people. My background has been as a motion graphic artist for TV and film, but after moving here, I was inspired to go back to my first love of painting and illustration. I grew up in the Midwest, and when I moved to LA as a teenager, it was a thrill to move from a small town to a city with so much culture. But it wasn't until I moved to this neighborhood that I felt that sense of community that I grew up with. As a member of the Elysian Valley Arts Collective, it's been a real honor to talk to so many artists that live and work here. It's a community that is eclectic, inspiring, and supportive of one another. I can't say enough about this place. My home, Frogtown.
Hi, Michael.
Hello, John. Good to meet you. I bought this place about 39 years ago. I was one of the first artists in. I forget there was another one further down the river who subsequently sold it and moved to Paris, I believe. He was one of the original Mexican-American artists. There was a group of 6 of them, I think. This is my heaven. This is where I'm God. I create. I can do anything I want, anything I think of. For me, thinking is very important. I have a friend who's a meditator, and he tries to banish all thought. Well, I cherish thought, but my thoughts are mostly visual. They're not literary. Well, I was born in Omaha, Nebraska, but my father took me to Chicago. And my talent actually came from my mother through her father. Her father was a painter. He worked on the railroad, but he painted on weekends. He painted pastoral landscapes. But my father appreciated the talent. And he would take me to the Art Institute in Chicago, where I just fell in love. And the Japanese prince at the Art Institute gave me a great love of Japanese art. And I managed to get over to Japan a couple of times, which got me involved with the Enzo and the karate school of painting. So the Art Institute made me. If I hadn't gone there, I don't know where I'd probably be working in the post office. I was raised Catholic and went to University of Notre Dame, Catholic University. Got a grant to come out to UCLA where, no more religion. I more or less stopped practicing, but some part of me still believes in the Creator. And it's the creative act that most interests me, because I feel I'm imitating God. But the juice, some sort of juice is flowing through me. I believe in the evolution of man, but I like the spiritual, even if I can't identify it. You may have noticed I like circles. For me, there's no corners to get caught in, so it's round and round. Round and round I go. Round and round the thoughts go. The shapes go. The way of putting paint on go. Do I use a brush? Not necessarily. Sometimes I pour and spill like Jackson Pollock. Sometimes I spray like Jules Olitsky. So whatever comes into my brain at any given time is going to get onto the canvas. These are my prayers. That's another thing I like to say, is that these works are my prayers.
My family's been here since the 60s. I came around in the early 80s. Most of my life I lived here or by Cal State LA. I started studying music and ballet at Cal State LA and in East LA in the early 80s. Then music, my dad started having me study music shortly after. From the music and ballet and everything, I had friends that were studying painting. I was in elementary and they were already excellent artists in high school. So maybe some of the older graffiti artists that I remember when I was in elementary school started to plant the seeds. That entire mural is actually using some impressionism. I actually used some of the vibes and even some of the designs that were already on the wall when I started it. So I turned some of the tags into some of the rectangular shapes. From there, I faded the background. I made the wall tell me what it wanted to have. And when you're an artist that could do that, it's almost like it paints itself. I would hold it as one of my works that I've spent the most time on. And somebody told me that I captured the fifth dimension, the dream world. And that's where I like to take a lot of my work. Why would I want to stay in this dimension when I could paint something that looks like a dream?
我家门前有小河，后面有山坡。The lyric is mean there's a riverside in front of my house, and there's a little mountain in my house, the backside, and there's a family place, make you really happiness, something like that. So when I arrived at Frogtown and I settled down here, I found, wow, this is the real place in that song. So I want to share with the audience, it's the real place here. When I was in London, not much Asian students studying art. So if I really want to join some art group or I want to prove my artwork somewhere, I really have to do lots of homework and work very hard to reach out some people and ask them to give me more opportunity, but maybe I only can get maybe 30% opportunity from some of them. And but for me, it's really good experience. And before, when I was really young, I feel like London and Taipei, they are the same in my memory, the feeling. And I never thought I will come to USA. I mean, it's really different culture for me. It's like a new experiment in my life. So now in Frogtown, I think I can do more, explore about my artwork or everything or my life. So now I'm really happy in here. Currently, I'm doing the project which called Kiku's Scenic Window. As you can see, those little artwork over there, I think I will do 100 pieces. And why the Kiku's? Because Kiku is my grandmother's name, and now she cannot travel and she's really sick. So she's still living in my hometown, and I try to make everything I see and here in Frogtown or LA. I want to make the little window like that and show her.
My grandfather, maybe 6 years ago, he got Alzheimer's, and he's really incredible pottery teacher and just very talented. And so I really wanted to get into pottery before he was too far gone. So I started taking some classes and just kind of got hooked. And then right after he passed, California wildfire wiped away their whole property in the Santa Cruz Mountains, and I was like, I'm pretty sure there's clay there. There has to be clay. So I started going to their property and digging to make this remembrance of this land that existed at one point, and my grandfather and all that stuff. Anyway, so I started experimenting with wild clay, and that's kind of where I started getting my style, I think, for my work, versus just practicing and making a bowl or this or whatever. I started developing a voice. And then I got into production pottery, which is how I got this space, because my production pottery expanded and I needed to have the space to make it. The store's now been a year and a half, and it's been good, actually.
Who are these artists? What drives their inspiration? Why do they create?
I don't really have that inspiration thing. I'm curious, I think, but I just come in here and do the work like I did when I shot film. I paint because I don't really look at myself as a painter. Just painting's the easiest thing to do. Artists say the most amazing thing. I could just steal, but Duchamp said, you don't choose art, art chooses you. And I definitely believe that. It ended up, a friend of mine, Nikki, who's a great artist, his friend owned the building, Harlan Gleason. And I just got there at the right time. But I don't know how long I'm going to have a space of this, I also respect that I have this opportunity. I'm not trying to look good or whatever, but it's a privilege. And at my age, I understand that, so that motivates me a lot too, that I have this tool to collaborate. And, when I was in Italy, I painted in a garage, but I felt the same day in and day out.
I'm more of a shaper when it comes to a creative process, meaning I actually grew up doing design work, like graphic design. And I was like, great, because somebody else wrote the article and I'm just the guy who do the layout and I put it in with the graphics. So very early on as a kid, I noticed in me, I'm not really the person who generated material firsthand, but I love being the person who worked with people who had the original content, but looking for a way to present it. When I came across film, specifically cinematography, I thought, wait, this is kind of perfect because I get to work with a director who can talk to the actor, do the blocking, and I kind of get to just observe and make my suggestion on what lighting or camera angle looks great for the scene that we're trying to present. And I lived in Silver Lake before I moved to Frogtown, which isn't too far. My old office, which is this office, was in Echo Park. So I was already living in a somewhat, proximity neighborhood. And then one day I was going around to see concert and I discovered Frogtown at Zebulon. And I was like, what is Frogtown? And then I started, going on hikes in Elysian Park, taking bike rides along the river. And I was like, this is beautiful. It's got this tucked away nature along with being so close to the metropolitanness. And I don't want to be disconnected from the youth culture, but I'm a lover of nature.
Well, the building was built in 1947, I believe, and it was used for industrial purposes. I don't know what it was built for initially, but when I came along in the early 2000s, it was being used for fountains, plaster, balustrades, balconies, that kind of thing. Some artist developers came to me, they were looking for investors for the building, and they had an idea to make adaptive reuse in the building, which was sort of a new concept, something that happens in neighborhoods that are sort of changing. Instead of tearing something down, you transform a building to a new use, and the idea was to turn it into artist lofts. When I purchased this building, sort of halfway through the sale process, they said, by the way, there's a vacant lot across the street that comes with the building. I sort of sat on it for a while, and then I went back to school and got a master's in urban sustainability, and they talked about how community gardens could change the world, transform neighborhoods. And so I thought, well, I've got this vacant lot, I might as well just put a community garden. But Steve and I met on a production, a fine bit of television called Mr. Personality, where the contestants wore masks, because then you would discover their true selves. But it's just funny that, and then we sort of just ended up in the neighborhood together, and so I knew how great and creative he was. I would recommend anyone who has a building have an artist as a building manager. Steve is the manager of the building. He's a fix-it guy.
I've luckily not had to have a regular job most of my life. It's been some form of art. Business side of art and so on like that. It was not really a choice. It was just this is what I do. And I've been an art director. I had a sculpting studio. I've painted. Now I have an etching studio. So I sort of stumbled into one thing after another. It's been winging it because I picked up etching in 2018. I took a 3-class thing over at Barnesdale Park where people were doing imprints of leaves, but they had an etching class. And I went out and bought a press that week. I've got a book on etching, but I've never read it yet. I sort of wing it. It's a process where you're going through with a zinc plate and you're burning designs into it with nitric acid. This is a baked on hard covering that I put on a piece. Then I come with a needle and scratch the lines in it, and then drop it in acid for a while. It burns the lines down, and then this is going to be the end piece. So I like the process because unlike painting, which is sort of boring to me, this is unpredictable. Half of these things almost got thrown away in the process of etching. I just finished this one, I'm not quite sure, last week. I'm not sure whether I like it at all. It's called Jack Attacks.
Community. The heart and soul of Frogtown. You embrace art the way you embrace people, with open arms.
Born and raised in this area, actually on the other side of Riverside. But so I've always been in this area, even through high school as well.
My parents brought me from Durango, Mexico as a toddler. We lived on Alessandro. My father was paying rent there. My father ended up buying the house next door, and we grew up most of our lives here on Alessandro. As an adult, when I got engaged, I ended up buying my house on Ripple Place. So I continued living in the neighborhood.
Of course, you move out of the area and then you come back, and what brought me back was Marcelino.
Met at one of my friend's birthday parties, and we just started dating, and she moved in.
10 years later.
10 years later, we're still here.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, no, as kids, we were always in the river swimming, playing with polywogs, riding our dirt bikes in there. I had a little Yamaha Enduro back in the 70s, and this is where I was racing it up and down right here.
Just like even right now, listening to it, the water, running water, it's so tranquil. It's peaceful. I mean, we sometimes will like to go down right next to the river and just sit there and just have our coffee, because it is just so peaceful.
People from all over started purchasing homes here, businesses, all these lofts. It's been really great for the community. Me as a homeowner, yeah, it's great. I mean, I have friends that aren't homeowners and aren't too happy with the gentrification because, everything's just more expensive to live here. For me, I mean, I walk my dog here down the river, good atmosphere. There's a crowd every day, so you meet new people, and it's just alive.
Yeah, I was born in September 1959, so from then until December of last year, except for 3 years, I lived in this neighborhood. This neighborhood was very much, when I was growing up in the 60s, like something out of Leave It to Beaver or the Brady Bunch. There was a strong sense of community. The neighborhood was very naturally integrated. Nobody thought twice about what your ethnic background was. There were whites, there were Latinos, who were primarily in those days Mexican Americans, a lot of Chinese and Japanese Americans, but everybody was at least one generation removed from an immigrant. Everybody else was very standard issue white bread, as they would say. Over by Stadium Way and Riverside Drive, the valley narrows a bit, and there it becomes more industrial. There's a public storage facility. Anything north of that public storage would be known as Parkside because of the Elysian Valley Recreation Center. Anything from the public storage south, that's known as Churchside because of the influence of St. Anne's Catholic Church. The first people that came in to establish restaurants or the art community got in touch with the Parkside people, where there had been a gang back in the 70s. By the time the 90s came around, it was pretty much extinct. But because so many of the people at that time either knew or were ex-members of that gang, they were proud of calling it Frogtown because the gang was called Frogtown Riverside. It's very nurturing, accepting of people. Generally, the community has always been. It's also very honest and open too, very real, very grounded. People are who they are. Nobody really stands on ceremony about, oh, I'm here, or I work at this. No, you could be homeless even, but as long as you're nice, you're welcome.
My mom's side of the family is all from here, so a lot of big family gatherings, holidays, a lot of adventures by the river. We used to come a lot to visit my grandma, and she would take me for walks along the river, and she'd let me go down into the water and collect rocks and try to catch bugs, fishing, that kind of stuff. It's really fun. I still try to do that because it's all I know. I don't know if it's still there, but there is this skeleton mannequin thing hanging down from one of the archways. And it's kind of just like if someone found just different pieces of garbage and combined them together to make something brand new. I kind of do that. A lot of the things here are things I found in the trash, and I spend a lot of time convincing my mom, like, yo, I can do something with this. Just don't be mad that I'm bringing all of this trash home, because I'm gonna turn it into art and you're gonna love it. And she loves it, so far, I feel like I've had a streak of luck in my little art journey. First, it started with the art classes here in this little room. Last weekend was my first time being a vendor. Now it's this. It gets a little stressful because I'm very used to just in my house making stuff. Definitely a little weird having everyone view my art and, give me their opinions on it. But that's what it's like to be an artist, and so I know I should keep doing things like this, even if it makes me uncomfortable.
Art can tell us things about the world, but also things about the artist. You can step into someone's mind, their feelings. You can escape into a dreamland or a different world.
I had a couple of friends living out here in Los Angeles, so my transition was pretty easy. I moved into this apartment, this studio, 10 years ago. It was my first place, my only place I've lived, and I'm very lucky to be here in Frogtown. I'm from Rhode Island, and I also lived in New York City for a few years. The place I'm in is always seen through my work. So when I was living in Rhode Island doing my undergrad, I was living at home, and my work was about domesticity and what makes a house a home, interior spaces. And then when I moved to New York, my work became more about piles of things and the feeling of being overwhelmed. Moving to California, my work has changed again. Now I'm influenced by the scenery around here, the vastness. No matter where I am, my work is kind of a representation of the place I'm at. Playing with perspective and color just adds a little bit of whimsy to my work, and it brings it from reality into maybe a more dream typescape. So I like to think of my landscapes as dreamscapes because they are familiar, but there is still some unknown to them because they're really not all of them are real places.
I do basking, like I play in the street, and then I do video poetry. So that's my main interest, like artistically, that's my main thing. I've been always making beats and writing poetry, you know, and I was doing these two things separately. And then eventually, like 3 years ago, I was like, oh, I should combine this, you know, I should make like some visuals around it, and then like lyrics, and then like my music. So that's what I've been doing lately. For the music style, it's very much influenced by hip hop and rap and electronic music, and then urban and pop music for the the lyrics and the like top line and the melodies. It's really a blend. So I'm from Italy, and I lived in Rome most of my life. Then I moved to Turin for a while, then to Milan, and then to New York 2016, and to LA 2020. For me here, people it's been more encouraging me. I just found more support, honestly. I don't know why. Maybe it's me. Maybe, like one night I was doing a jam session with a Turkish musician who was just walking by, and we played together, improvising. It was actually here. It was incredible. You meet all kind of people here, and like video artists. Like sometimes there is people like just passing by with a drone and they film me. For me, it's been a perfect environment.
What's special about the river to you specifically?
There's just so much wildlife and so many different plants, and it just seems very exotic, and it's just like a little sliver of nature amongst this big city.
And like you can go on a walk and there's the river, and it's like we've seen hawks like dive into the river and grab fish, and like it just doesn't feel like LA and the like busyness.
Yeah, the river, it's like for me, it's been, I don't know, I just like it. Like I go here every day, running, biking, and playing music.
I've not swam in the river, I've fallen in the river, chasing after my dog.
I also really like the Taylor Yard Bridge. The new bridge connects us to Cypress Park. I love hanging out there, and my favorite time to go is sunset because that's when all the frogs come out, and it sounds like a choir almost, and I'll stay there for hours just listening to them.
I remember early on when I had the building, one of the tenants, I ran into him and he said, I just saw a falcon catch a fish in the river, and I feel like I'm in National Geographic.
Oh, next month they start doing the kayaking.
Kayaking.
Yeah.
Which is fun to do. I have not done it yet. This year I'm doing it. This year.
And it's so nice, especially when you're working, I think, to be able to like take that break and like go on a walk and see like the flowing water, see your neighbors. The river has this kind of like element of life that I think makes the whole neighborhood feel pretty alive.
Sometimes there are some ducks or birds around the riverside, and maybe in April some flower just very blossom, but in the winter maybe only the green or brown things. After 1 year, I think, wow, the season changing is really interesting here and very clearly.
There's also a sense, I think, that everything here is not maximizing profit. That brings down neighborhoods in a lot of ways. You know, we're just building from lot line to lot line, maximum heights. Everything is about the bottom line. Here, I think we make space for other things that are important to human thriving.
You also have taught that for the Elysian Valley Arts Collective. What was that like, or what's that been like?
It was really fun. I would definitely do it again. And even when it ended, the students were asking me, oh, is there going to be more classes, or are you going to be there? They were so upset when it ended, and it made me sad. So I'm really hoping that there will be more so I can see them again and have fun all over again.
What's really great about Frogtown is the locals kind of hang out here. There's a lot going on in Frogtown. We have a really great art community going on, and every year it just gets better and better, and I think a lot of that has to do with EVAC. The events they throw and the community that's here, it's just very vibrant and diverse.
I always say my heart is in Frogtown, and that was really because of the art walk experiences. Putting the art walk together, that would be months of planning and meetings. The event itself was always just an exciting culmination of all of that effort, and the great range of people who come into the neighborhood to see what's going on down here.
I would like to see the art walk once a year, not every other.
Yeah.
Because again, it brings a different audience into Frogtown.
The Arts Collective is always looking to encourage the creative spirit, especially in young people. Is there anything that you'd care to share that's helped you on your journey?
Well, in retrospect, I would say stay away from sculpture. It's very hard, and there's no place to put it.
Being around, meeting other creative spirits and younger people with different value, different background than you are, really pushes me and explored a side of myself that I didn't know that I was actually into as well. So I would say the only advice that I would have is just sometimes the most inspiring things may not be all the way in the Getty Center. It may just be your neighbor. It may be the kid that is walking the dog.
I think it's important to just keep making, always be making. If you have an idea, put it down on paper, put it to a canvas, because what good is an idea if you're not sharing it?
I don't have anything inspiring to say in this digital dark age to them, because I think we need to listen to them right now.
The one thing I'd say, and I keep saying it to people, is the whole idea I mentioned before about getting a space and having an art of your own in addition to what you end up having to do for a living. Because, you know, straight art doesn't pay the bills that often.
I think as long as they have, and I don't know where they're going to get it in this country, but some kind of moral center, they're going to be fine, you know.
For me, it's all about authenticity and being pure, and it's very difficult because obviously, like everything like around us, it's like pushing us to, you know, outperform others or like just care about, you know, an outcome. But it's kind of the opposite. So you shouldn't care about the outcome at all.
And one of my latest murals, that's next to the 6th Street Bridge in Boyle Heights, on the bottom of it, I put Free Palestine. I would like to just basically convey that art is a chance for a person to be a scientist, a journalist, an astronomer, a musician. Art is a chance, especially when it's abstract art, especially when it's art from another dimension that looks like a dream. Art allows a person to do their best, to be in marches, to free places like Palestine, or be in marches for some of the natives, some of the Black Lives Matter people, some of the different movements that I participate in. And art allows me to be in those things and survive.
I'm not an activist, I'm not a social artist, you know. I think my work reflects my angst and my despair and my, you know, whatever, but I really think it's important at this time, you know, to raise your voice.
Art is supposed to be powerful, spark conversations, bring people together. And the art in Frogtown does just that.
Use cop.
It's kind of overwhelming, like you said. There's so much to take in.
Yeah.
It's hard to know where to look.
I guess I get overwhelmed myself. I think, I did this? When did I sleep? when did I eat? It's been a good life, a rich, full life, and fortunately, a lucky life. The art has supported me.
I would be very, very, very remiss if I didn't end this by saying a tremendous thank you to two of my neighbors and two of the most active community activists that this neighborhood ever had, Richard and Virginia Adams. They single-handedly saved half of this neighborhood from being bulldozed by the city when the blue line was being proposed as a rail line. And another time they came when another developer was going to come in and just tear down this half of the neighborhood.
You want to give a shout out to any of the street artists that you came up with?
Yeah, if I could send some respect to Big Talks, his little brother Segs, all the community of LA that stays conscious and make sure to remember that knowledge is power.
What is special about Frogtown to you, this neighborhood?
It's where my family's from. I can't imagine myself being anywhere else.